Margaret Winslow lived as if God himself were her decorator. Her marble floors gleamed like mirrors, her chandeliers glowed day and night, and her mansion on Willow Heights looked down on everyone who couldn't afford a gate code. People didn't visit Margaret. They approached her carefully, like she might fine them for breathing wrong. Her newest housemaid, Evelyn Harper, learned that within 48 hours. Please do well to subscribe to this channel so that you won't miss any of our stories. Evelyn! The shriek bounced off every imported tile in the house. Evelyn winced and hurried into the foyer, hands still wet from scrubbing the upstairs bathroom. Margaret stood by the grand piano wearing a silk robe, red lipstick, and a look that could slice stone. "You call this clean?" She pointed at a single fingerprint on the lid. "Do you have any idea how much this piano costs?"
"I'm sorry, Mom,"
Evelyn said quickly, head lowered. "I'll polish it again." "Oh, you will," Margaret replied. "And I'm deducting $20 from your pay. Maybe then you'll remember that my property deserves respect." $20. Evelyn's stomach twisted. That was half her food for the week. "Yes, Mom." Margaret sniffed and swept out of the room like a storm cloud satisfied with thunder. From the staircase, a small face peeked down, the only gentle soul in the mansion. Ethan, Margaret's 6-year-old son, clutched a toy truck and whispered, "Are you okay, Miss Evie?" Evelyn smiled faintly. "I'm okay, sweetheart." He nodded, unconvinced, and slipped back upstairs. Evelyn's attic room was barely larger than a closet. At night, when the house finally slept, she sat by the tiny lamp and opened a small metal box under her bed. Inside lay her treasure, a handful of crumpled bills, a few coins, and folded sketches of dresses she dreamed of sewing one day. She was 24, bright, patient, and poor, born in a town nobody remembered. Her mother, a tailor, had taught her to stitch beauty out of scraps before illness took her away. Evelyn promised herself she would honor that gift someday, even if it took years. She whispered to the darkness, "Someday this box will become my shop." Outside, the night wind carried laughter from the mansion's patio. Margaret's friends sipping champagne, gossiping about people who cleaned their bathrooms. Evelyn fell asleep to that sound every night, the laughter of the rich rolling over her like waves. Margaret Winslow despised being questioned, but she feared something more, losing control. Her late husband had left her wealthy but alone, and she filled the emptiness with authority. Everyone around her had to be smaller, employees, neighbours, even her own son. She mistook cruelty for power because kindness felt too much like weakness. By morning, her bitterness needed an audience.
"Evelyn!" she barked again. "You forgot to iron the silk curtains properly."
Evelyn had ironed them twice.
"I'll redo them, Mum."
"You'll redo everything," Margaret snapped. "And skip breakfast. You don't work well on a full stomach." Evelyn nodded silently. Ethan wandered in, clutching his cereal bowl. "Mom, she's always working. Can she eat with us just once?" Margaret's eyes flared. "Ethan, don't interfere in adult matters." The boy shrank back. Evelyn gave him a secret smile that said it's all right, though it wasn't. Later that day, Ethan slipped a granola bar under Evelyn's cleaning cart. "For you," he whispered. "You shouldn't skip breakfast." She knelt beside him. "Thank you, Ethan, but if your mother finds out—" "She won't," he said proudly. "I'm sneaky." Evelyn laughed softly, the first real laugh she'd had in weeks. "You're a brave boy." His eyes sparkled. "Someday I'll be rich like Mom, but nice like you."
The words warmed her heart.
She pocketed the bar, promising herself she'd eat it slowly, to make the kindness last. Weeks passed. Margaret's cruelty became routine, public scoldings, petty deductions, endless chores. Once she forced Evelyn to scrub the driveway on her knees because the pressure washer wastes electricity. Another time she accused her of breaking a vase that Margaret herself had knocked over. Each insult chipped away at Evelyn's pride, but never her dream. The attic box grew heavier, slowly, painfully, one coin at a time. Then came the day Margaret exploded over a hedge. She dragged Evelyn to the backyard. "Do these look straight to you?" The hedges were perfect. "Yes, Mum, I trimmed them evenly yesterday." "Don't contradict me," Margaret shouted. "You think because you can read and write that you're clever? You're lucky I even let you work here." Ethan stood by the porch, frozen. "Mum, she did do them right. I saw." "Go inside, Ethan," Margaret barked.
When he obeyed, she turned back, her voice low and venomous. "You poor people are all the same, slow, stubborn and useless. You exist to serve people like me." Something broke inside Evelyn then. Her hands trembled, but her eyes steadied. "Ma'am," she said softly, "I may be poor, but I work hard. Please don't speak to me like I'm less than human." Margaret blinked, stunned that her maid dared answer back. Then her mouth curved into a cruel smile. "Oh, honey, you're not less than human." She leaned close, whispering, "You're beneath human." Evelyn flinched like she'd been slapped. That night, Evelyn sat on her bed, shaking. Anger warred with exhaustion, but above them both burned resolve. She took out her sketches, smoothing their edges tenderly. "Keep going," she whispered. "No one owns your future." Downstairs, thunder rolled across the sky. The air grew heavy with the scent of impending rain. Neither woman knew that by the next dawn, their world would burn. The night the fire began, Evelyn was dreaming of her mother's hands guiding hers over a sewing machine. The dream smelled of warm fabric and lavender oil, nothing like the sharp, acidic scent that suddenly seeped into her nostrils. She gasped awake. Something was wrong. Her throat prickled, her eyes burned. Through the thin crack under her attic door, a grey cloud drifted in like a silent warning. Smoke. Her heart lurched violently. She sprang to her feet, grabbed the doorknob and jerked back as heat seared her palm. The air felt alive, crackling, shifting, dangerous. She grabbed her apron to shield her hand, flung open the door, and staggered into a hallway already hazy with smoke. The house was breathing fire. "Help!" A scream jolted through the air. "Someone, help!" It was Margaret's voice. Evelyn ran down the stairs barefoot, coughing with each breath. Flames had erupted near the kitchen, spilling across the walls like orange serpents. The heat pressed against her skin, wrapping around her like a cruel embrace. Bursting through the front door, Evelyn found Margaret outside, hair dishevelled, silk robe twisted around her trembling body. She looked wild, terrified, and almost unrecognisable. "The fire! Evelyn, do something!" Margaret's hands shook violently. "The fire spread so fast, I couldn't. Where's Ethan?" Evelyn gasped. Margaret froze. It was the kind of freeze that didn't come from shock, but guilt. Her lip quivered. He's still inside." A numb chill slid down Evelyn's spine. "You left him." Margaret clutched her chest. "I tried. The hallway was burning. I couldn't reach him. He's upstairs. Oh, God, Evelyn!" But Evelyn wasn't listening anymore. She was running back into the flames. "Evelyn, no!" Margaret screamed. But her voice was swallowed by the roaring fire. Inside, the heat slammed into Evelyn like a burning wall. She threw her arm over her face and stumbled deeper into the house. Flames crackled and snapped around her as she forced her way toward the staircase, each breath feeling like it scraped the inside of her lungs. "Ethan!" she shouted. "Ethan, answer me!"
For a moment, there was only fire and frightening silence. Then a faint sound rose through the smoke. "Evie!" Her heart cracked open with both terror and relief. She pushed forward, grabbing the stair railing with her apron-covered hand and hauling herself up. Flames licked at her ankles. Smoke blurred the hallways. She stumbled toward the faint crying, following instinct more than vision. She reached Ethan's room. The door was partly blocked by a fallen beam. With a trembling groan, she shoved it aside and forced her way in. The air inside was thick and choking. Ethan sat huddled beside his bed, sobbing into his knees.
"Oh, sweetheart," Evelyn breathed, scooping him into her arms. "I'm here. I'm right here."
"I was scared," he whimpered. "I couldn't get out."
"I know, baby. I know."
She pressed his head into her chest.
"We're going to make it, okay? Hold on to me tight."
She turned to escape, but the hallway behind them was now an inferno. Flames had devoured the ceiling, the stairs, everything. She was trapped. Her eyes darted to the window at the far end of the hallway. It was their only chance. Carrying Ethan, coughing violently, Evelyn sprinted toward it. Her legs shook. Each step felt like pushing through boiling air. She shoved open the window. Cool night air rushed in, stinging her face but reviving her spirit.
"Close your eyes and hold on to me,"
she whispered. Ethan clung to her, trembling. With all the strength she had left, Evelyn jumped. They fell. The air whooshed past them for a second that felt like forever. They hit the lawn with a force that stole Evelyn's breath. Pain shot through her shoulder and back, but she didn't let go of Ethan for a second. When she finally opened her eyes, people were running toward them, neighbors pouring out of their homes, firefighters rushing from their trucks. Ethan burst into sobs. "Evie saved me! She saved me!" Margaret ran toward them too, but something in her expression wasn't relief, it was calculation. As soon as she had Ethan in her arms, she turned on Evelyn with an accusation already burning in her eyes. "What did you do?" she spat. "You started the fire, didn't you? You were the last one in the kitchen." Evelyn stared at her in disbelief. "Ma'am, no. I was asleep." Margaret pointed a trembling finger at her. "My son almost died, and you expect me to believe you had nothing to do with it?" "Mom," Ethan cried. "She saved me. You left me. She—" "That's enough, Ethan," Margaret snapped. "You're confused." Firefighters interrupted the argument, ushering everyone aside as they fought the blaze. Hours passed. Flames eventually died. Ashes smouldered where a kitchen and hallway once stood. When the smoke cleared and firefighters finished their report, they approached Margaret. "Cause appears to be faulty wiring," one explained. "No evidence of negligence from cleaning or cooking." Margaret stiffened. "But anger is a stubborn thing. It doesn't care about truth." "We'll see about that," she muttered. "I'm not done with her." Evelyn was too exhausted to argue. She began walking toward the house, hoping to salvage something, anything, from her attic room. But when she climbed the charred staircase and reached the top floor, her heart dropped into a cold, heavy pit. Her room was gone. The walls were black. The floor was soaked and broken. Her bed was a twisted, burned frame. Her clothes were ashes. Her sketches, every dream she had poured onto paper, were nothing but floating embers. Her savings box had melted into a warped lump of metal. Everything she owned in this world had died in the flames. Everything she worked for, everything she saved, everything she hoped to build, gone. A quiet sound escaped her, a sound too soft to be called a cry, yet too broken to be anything else. She knelt in the ruins and let the truth settle over her like soot. She had nothing left. Just smoke in her lungs, burns on her skin, and a future that had just been erased. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do well to subscribe to this channel. By doing this, you help us share more that transform lives. And in the comments, tell us how this story stood out for you. The morning after the fire felt colder than winter, even though the sun shone brightly over Willow Heights. Evelyn walked aimlessly down the sidewalk with nothing but the burned clothes on her back and a blanket a paramedic had draped over her. She had no bag, no money, no ID, no change of clothes, and no home. When she reached the bus stop, she realized she didn't even have the fare. She sat on the bench instead, hugging the blanket, trying not to cry in public. People drove past, some slowing down to stare, others speeding up like pity was contagious. Evelyn didn't blame them. The world had taught her early that no one stopped for people who looked like they had nothing to offer. A soft voice broke through her thoughts. "Miss Evelyn?" Ethan stood in front of her, still wearing smoke-stained pajamas. His eyes were puffy from crying, his cheeks streaked with dried tears. Behind him stood his uncle, David Winslow. Evelyn blinked in surprise. "Ethan? What are you doing here?" "I wanted to see you," he said, climbing onto the bench beside her. "Mum said we shouldn't. But I don't care." Evelyn swallowed hard. "Sweetheart, you need to listen to your mother." Ethan moved closer, lowering his voice. "She's mad because you saved me when she didn't."
Evelyn gently touched his cheek, but David cleared his throat softly. "Ethan, give us a moment, okay?" he said. "I need to talk to Miss Evelyn alone." Ethan nodded and stepped a few feet away, kicking pebbles while keeping an eye on them. David sat beside her. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said, "but I felt I should check on you." Ethan was worried. Evelyn offered a polite, tired smile. "I'm managing." "You don't look like you're managing," David replied quietly. His tone wasn't pitying, it was calm, observant, like he wasn't trying to fix her, just see her. Evelyn didn't respond. After a moment, David continued, "I know my sister. When she called me last night, she blamed you for the fire. She said you were reckless, irresponsible, and that she had no choice but to fire you." Evelyn's breath hitched. "She fired me." David nodded. "She made it very clear you're not allowed near the house again." He hesitated. "But I also know Margaret panics when she feels guilty. And Ethan told me everything." The boy glanced up at them hopefully. David kept his voice low. "He said you carried him through the flames, jumped out the window with him, protected him on the fall. He said you didn't think twice." Evelyn lowered her eyes, suddenly uncomfortable with the attention. "Anyone would have done it." "No," David said firmly. "Not anyone." Silence settled between them. Evelyn stared at her burned sleeve, at the ash smudges on her arms. She felt like a ghost of herself, floating above her own ruined life. David broke the quiet. "Do you have somewhere to stay?" "Not yet." "Do you have money?" "Not anymore." David nodded slowly, absorbing the reality. "You can stay with my wife and me," he offered. "Just until you get on your feet." Evelyn shook her head immediately. "I don't want to be a burden."
It wouldn't be a burden. It would be the decent thing to do. She hesitated. He seemed sincere, but she had lived long enough to know people sometimes offer kindness with strings attached. She couldn't afford any more strings. "I appreciate it," she said softly, "but I need to find my own path." David studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right." He reached into his wallet and handed her a card. "If you ever need anything, even something small, call me. No expectations. Just help." She took the card reluctantly but gratefully. The moment she did, Ethan ran back over and wrapped his arms tightly around her. "Don't disappear," he whispered. "Don't let Mum chase you away forever." Evelyn hugged him so fiercely it almost hurt. "I'm not going anywhere," she murmured. But the truth was, she didn't know what would happen next. David eventually led Ethan away, giving Evelyn one last considerate look before they disappeared around the corner. Evelyn stayed at the bus stop long after they left, trying to gather what little hope she still had left. By evening, she found herself at a women's shelter. The receptionist handed her a blanket and a small toiletries kit. The room they assigned her held 6 bunk beds and smelled faintly of bleach. It wasn't home, but it was safe. She lay down that night and stared at the ceiling, trying not to think about the melted box of savings, the burned sketches, or the cruel look in Margaret's eyes. She tried not to think about Ethan's tiny voice begging his mother to stop blaming her. What hurt more than anything was that her dream, her mother's legacy, had died without even beginning. Days bled together. Evelyn found temporary work cleaning offices at night, earning enough to buy small meals. She kept her hair tied up to hide the ends that had singed in the fire. She tried to sketch again, but her hands shook each time she picked up a pencil. Even thinking of sewing made her chest ache. Everything reminded her of what she'd lost. Meanwhile, Margaret repaired her home, barked orders at contractors, and shaped the narrative around town that Evelyn had nearly cost her son his life. She told her wealthy friends that Evelyn was careless, unpredictable, and unfit to work in elite environments. What Margaret did not realize was that her lies were cracking at the edges. One afternoon, nearly 6 weeks after the fire, Evelyn received a call from the shelter office. "There's a child asking for you," they said. Ethan stood in the lobby with a backpack full of snacks and an anxious expression. "Evelyn," he said breathlessly, "you have to come. Uncle David says it's important." Her heart jolted. "Ethan, how did you get here? Does your mother know?" "She thinks I'm with my tutor," he whispered proudly. "But please, just come. Uncle David said you deserve to know something." She hesitated for only a moment before following him outside, where David waited in his car. He opened the door for her wordlessly. He didn't drive to the Winslow home. He drove to the fire department. Evelyn tensed. "David, why are we here?" He looked like someone who had wrestled with a hard truth. "Because, Evelyn," he said quietly, "the full fire investigation is complete now. And the results, they aren't what Margaret is telling people." He handed her a printed report. "You deserve to see this." Evelyn's fingers trembled as she unfolded the paper. As she read, her eyes widened. Her breath hitched. Her hands shook harder. And for the first time since the fire, something inside her finally snapped. She told her wealthy friends that Evelyn was careless, unpredictable, and unfit to work in elite environments. What Margaret did not realize was that her lies were cracking at the edges. The real problems were just beginning. Evelyn stared at the papers in her hands, the words blurring and sharpening again as she forced herself to keep reading through the shock tightening her chest. The fire had started in the old wiring behind the pantry wall, but the real revelation was buried deeper in the report. According to investigators, the fire had spread faster than expected because several large furniture pieces had blocked the main hallway. Furniture Margaret had ordered to be stored temporarily until she found a place for them. Despite repeated recommendations from the estate safety inspector that no items should block the emergency passage, the report detailed how the blocked hallway had created a bottleneck of smoke and heat, trapping anyone upstairs and delaying firefighters from accessing the second floor. Evelyn's hands trembled. "She caused this," she whispered. "She made it worse." David nodded slowly, his face tight. "She did, and the fire department has already submitted this as the official cause To the insurance company. Ethan stepped closer, gripping the sleeve of Evelyn's jacket. Mum said it was your fault, he said softly.
But it wasn't. It wasn't at all. For a moment, Evelyn felt something rise in her chest. Not anger, not grief, but disbelief that Margaret had been willing to destroy her completely just to protect her pride. Why didn't she tell the truth? Evelyn asked, though she knew the answer. David exhaled. Because admitting the truth means admitting she ran out first. That she left Ethan. That she blocked the hallway with furniture she didn't want cluttering her formal rooms. Margaret can't accept being wrong. Evelyn folded the papers and held them to her chest like they were burning. So what now? That depends on you, David said. The insurance company may ask you for a statement since Margaret brought your name into it again, and the fire department has the authority to issue violations. But this isn't about revenge, Evelyn. It's about deciding how far you're willing to let her go before you protect yourself. Evelyn stared out the car window, watching strangers walk past, unaware of the storm inside her. For weeks, she'd tried to survive quietly, telling herself that losing everything was just another hardship she'd eventually rise from. But hardship was one thing. Being destroyed by lies was another. I'm tired, David, she said finally. I'm tired of pretending I'm fine. I'm tired of letting people walk over me because I'm scared to fight back. David nodded slowly. Then maybe it's time to stop letting her narrate your life. There was no pressure in his voice, no push, just truth she wasn't used to hearing. Evelyn looked at Ethan. Would you be scared if I spoke up? He shook his head fiercely. I'll tell whoever you want what really happened. I'm not scared anymore. For the first time in weeks, Evelyn felt a flicker of strength. Not anger, not vengeance. Strength. She said quietly, I'll give the statement. Not because she wanted Margaret punished, not because she wanted attention, but because she was done hiding in shadows while someone else painted her as a villain. 2 days later, Evelyn met with officials and calmly told them everything. The blocked hallway, the moment she found Margaret outside screaming, the terror in Ethan's voice, the jump from the window, the accusations Margaret hurled before the smoke even cleared. It was the hardest conversation she'd ever had, but when it ended she felt 10 pounds lighter. The investigation closed soon after. The insurance payout Margaret expected was denied immediately. Violations were issued. She received a formal reprimand from emergency services, and word spread quickly among the wealthy circles she loved so much. Her reputation cracked like porcelain. But Evelyn did not stay to watch Margaret unravel. She had her own life to rebuild. Weeks turned into months. Evelyn kept her night cleaning job and eventually added a daytime job at a small community centre sewing room where volunteers mended clothes for low-income families. It wasn't glamorous and it didn't pay much, but it was honest work. And it brought her back to the needle and thread she'd once loved. The first time she picked up a spool of red thread, her hands shook. She forced herself to breathe through the tremor. You okay? Asked Mrs. Lena, the elderly supervisor. Evelyn nodded. Just out of practice. Well, Mrs. Lena smiled. The fabric doesn't know that. Give it a try. So she did. Stitch by stitch, she mended school uniforms, hemmed trousers, patched jackets. Her movements were stiff at first, but slowly, just like muscle memory waking up, her hands returned to life. The rhythm steadied her breathing. The fabric soothed her mind. And for the first time since the fire, Evelyn felt something she'd thought she lost forever. Purpose. One afternoon, a woman entered the centre holding a torn dress.
She was a tired-looking single
mother with a toddler on her hip.
"I can't afford another dress," she said quietly. "Do you think anyone here could fix it?" Evelyn examined the fabric. "I can," she said. "Give me an hour." She repaired the dress carefully, adding a few decorative stitches for beauty. When she returned it, the woman's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how to thank you." Evelyn smiled. "You just did." Word spread quickly. Soon people came asking specifically for the young lady with the gentle hands and perfect stitches. Evelyn worked tirelessly, saving every spare dollar, rebuilding her dream one thread at a time.